Hey everybody, Lars here. Hold on a minute. Wait 2 seconds. I forgot to mute my TV because I am taping this on Saturday and I am watching UCLA in Arizona, and Arizona is killing UCLA. Very interesting, very good team. Trier is back. Figured I'd hop on real quick, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and do a program for you. The reason I do this is because you just got the slides. You might just be starting with the programming language, and you're reading about how to do all these things, but you're getting your homework assignment, and you're not really sure, okay, what do I do now? How do I start? What do I do? All right? So I'm going to go through doing a simple program from soup to nuts with you, and hopefully you'll be okay. Let's pretend that as a homework assignment, I told you that someone is going to give you a lump amount of pennies. You are to query the user for a lump amount of pennies, and then you have to tell the user how many quarters, how many dimes, and how many nickels, and how many pennies are left over reside in that pile of pennies that you gave me, okay? That's something you might get for a homework assignment, all right? So let's do that. Let's ask the user for how many pennies and then tell them how many quarters, how many dimes, how many nickels, how many pennies exist in that pile. And I think you could probably figure out how to do it because we're smart people. I got my Python. I'm going to go File. I'm going to say New File. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, and I'm going to say Save As. And I'm going to go to the folder I keep for this class. Data Science in Unit 1, and I am going to call this program penny.py. Okay, and I always start my programs out with some comments. I'm just going to say author Lars, and then down here I will say a program to count the change in a pile of pennies. Okay, good enough for the comments. Okay, save. I'm floating in space. Now what do I do? What do I start? How do I do things? What's going to happen? First thing I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to print to the screen a simple line. Call it the penny program. Yay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I had. And that's good enough right there. Okay. So now if I save it and I run, I see, yeah, the penny program. I'm going to teach you a little trick. \n. We'll print a blank line at the end of that. Oh, look, so we got a little blank line. We're in good shape right there. Okay, so remember, we want to comment as we go along. So I'm going to say up here, print a header. All right, and then what's the next thing I want to do? I want to get the amount of pennies from the user. So when I say user, I mean the person running the program. That should be easy enough. I have a variable called pennies, and I'll say pennies equals, and I'll do it right away and explain it after. Int input, and then enter the amount of pennies. Remember to close everything. I need 2 parens there, okay? Remember, because we discussed it in review video 1, I'm asking for a number here because I'm going to do arithmetic, so I want to make sure it's an integer. So I cast the result of the input function. And input's going to ask the user enter amount of pennies. I'll put in an amount of pennies. It'll be casted into an integer, and it will be stored in this variable. Just to make sure, along the way, I will print pennies, and let's test this while we go. Enter the amount of pennies. I will add a space in there, and I will say 234. And it will tell me 234. Okay, so that seems to work. Put a space in there. I think I've said this in previous videos. I'll say it here too. Back in the day, when I learned how to program, back in the 80s, memory was precious and compile time was precious. We all ran on mainframes. And we were supposed to, mainframes did a thing called time sharing, where everybody was on the mainframe, but it felt like you had control of the whole thing yourself. But you didn't want to waste compile time. You didn't want to waste people's time. So you were supposed to plan out your program and do this and do that and get everything ready before you ran, because you want to compile it as few times as possible before getting it right. Nowadays, you don't have to think that way. I always say we're lousy with memory. We have more memory than we can use now. Memory is cheap. My God, your laptop probably has 16 gigs of RAM on it. It's a crazy amount of memory. Plus, the compile time, you're utilizing the processor in your laptop or your own machine. You're not messing anybody up. You can compile to your heart's content. So now when we develop programs, it's more like rapid prototyping. It's more like, we're doing here. We're just going to quick whip something up, test it along the way, and when we get to the end, we're going to have a fully functioning, working piece of code. A lot of people will follow that plan. I know if you've had a programming course in the last couple of years or maybe 10 years ago, you start with flow charts and they start talking about flow charting and always saying what your statements are going to be and your decisions will be a diamond and I go here for this and here for that, blah, 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 blah. Not for nothing, I come from a video game world where we just do rapid prototyping where, hey, I got a good idea. Let's quick whip something up because I want to play test it with my friends and see if something works. And if something works, then I'll build on it. Then I'll design. Then I'll do this. Blah, blah, blah. So a lot of times in programming, especially with Python because it's a good mock-up language, people will do rapid prototyping and do things as we go. I digress. Let's continue. So I printed the amount of pennies. That worked pretty good. Okay, so I have the pennies. Not too shabby crabby. All right, so what am I going to do? Let's determine how many quarters we have. How many questers? How many quarters? Determine how many quarters. Am I spelling that right? I don't think so. Yeah. Quarters. There we go. That feels better. All right. How do I do that? Well, let's get a variable that says quarters, and let's take our pennies, and how do we determine how many quarters are in there? I'm going to do integer division because I don't want any decimal points, and I'm just going to divide by 25. Woohoo! And then I'm going to print quarters, comma, quarters. Okay. And let's see what we get. Enter the amount of pennies. I'll say 234. That says 9 quarters. Not too shabby. All right. Let's do this real quick. Print the remaining pennies, and then just print pennies, comma, pennies. So that way, when we do it, we will say 234, and then we'll get the pennies at the end. What do you notice? We're not altering our pennies. So we're telling you how many quarters, but then we tell you how many pennies. We're not really taking them out to tell you how many pennies are left. So let's do that. How do we do that? We want to alter our pennies, and we want to make it equal to pennies minus the pennies we used for our quarters. How many quarters is that? How many pennies is that? Quarters, but we want it expressed in pennies, so quarters times 25 I think works. And then pennies will be the new amount. So let's 234. Yay, look at that. So we have 9 quarters and 9 pennies, and that's correct. 9 quarters is 225 plus 9 is 234. So we know we're in good shape. All right. We are chugging along. Look at the code we have already. We've only been doing this for like 5 minutes, and we've got some good code. So what do I want to do now? I think what I want to do is I'm going to take this piece of code, I'm going to copy it, Control-C, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to paste it. Oh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. Okay, for whatever reason it worked that time. But this time we want to do dimes. So I'm going to teach you a little trick. Highlight all that, and come up here to edit. And go to, where is it? Replace. Okay. And you will see, I want to find quarters, and I want to replace it with dimes, right? Quarters, 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 and I want to replace and find. So, boom. So why didn't you do that second one? Did it only do the first one? Oh, replace all. There we go. Okay, so determine how many dimes works. Dimes equals pennies, but we have to make sure we do this. We don't want to leave it 25. Now we want to do it 10. Print dimes, dimes, nice. Okay, look at it. All right, we can't use 234 anymore. Why? 234. There are no dimes. Let's run it again and say 241. Yay, 1 dime. All right, we're cooking with gas here. Look at this, we're chugging right along. All right, can you guess? Copy. Paste. This time, I am going to edit, replace. I'm going to replace dimes with nickels. I'm going to replace all. So, how many nickels? Nickels are 5. Print nickels, nickels. Print nickels times 5. All right, so 234. Does that work? Let me separate that out. Enter the amount of pennies. Oh, and I did that replace all. It did everything, didn't it? Look at that. How weird. And I can't just go and undo that. Interesting. I thought it only did it in the highlighted block. Edit. Replace. No, I can't tell it to do that in the thing, because now I want to do nickels, quarters, and I only want to do that block. But if I say replace all, it does it everywhere. Oh, that's crummy. I didn't know that. Ugh. Oh well. I guess I'll deal with it by just doing it manually really quick to fix this up. Idle, help me out here. What are you doing to me? Dimes. Dimes. You can fast forward through this. I may even fast forward through this or speed it up when I produce the video. But for the time being, nickels. That's fine. Nickels. All right, we're almost there. Nickels. And one more. Yes. Yes. Nickels times 5. Save, run. Penny program 234. There we go. Quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. And is it correct? Yes, it is. My OCD can make me go back and capitalize everything. All right. So we're in good, really good shape here. Enter the amount of payment. 234. All right, pretty good. So now we've got a working program basically. We answered our question at least, our homework question. When we said print a program, takes the amount of pennies from the user, and then prints out how many quarters, how many dimes, how many nickels, and how many pennies, which we do pretty well here. Let me try another one. 241. Yeah, look at that. All right, there's one last thing I'm going to do, just to fix things up a little bit better, is you notice 234 up here where you have 0 dimes. If you don't have any dimes, why print it out, right? So why don't we make the print contingent on having something there, okay? So if it's 0, don't bother printing it. How would we do something along those lines? All right, I think I know, because I am armed with an if statement. So if quarters is not, where's my thing, equal to 0, then I print. Okay, so if it's 0, just nothing will happen. Now I don't have an else because I don't care. If it's 0, nothing will happen. So if I do that all the way down the line, if dimes is not equal to 0, print dimes. If nickels not equal to 0, you see how I go and grab the indent and then I hit delete, so it comes up and it's an indented block. So it determines, the truth of this determines whether it'll get printed or not, okay? You know what? I'll even do it for pennies. If pennies not equal to 0. Oh, okay, so save. This way if we run it, let's say I give it 24 cents. So I shouldn't have any quarters, right? 2 dimes and 4 cents. Then that's all I see. I don't see the nickels. I don't see the quarters. I just see what I have. So that's pretty cool. That's a neat fix. Let's go back and look at some of the ones we've been doing. 234. No dimes. See? Now there's the other one, 241 we've been doing. That has that is everything. So now everything shows up. Okay? So that's how you do it. That's a quick program. You can see we commented every section we did. We learned a little bit about idle because I thought that find and replace was going to work on a highlighted block. It didn't. It worked on everything in the code. So I had to go back and fool around with that. But I wanted you to see a find and replace because a lot of times we can, reutilize code that you've used already by just going and changing some stuff. All right. So you got a working Penny program here. I'm going to put penny.py in your Sakai resources, so don't worry about it. You can grab this, you can play around with it, you can see how it works, you can change things around. That's how we learn how to code. We take example code and we play around with it, and we type our things up, and then we change variables and test constraints and see where we are. Okay? All right, so good. No announcements, no craziness. I'm just going to get out of here. I wanted you to see how to do this program, all right? All right. I'll talk to you later. You be good. Bye.